Yeah. When did you start collecting?
Like probably about 2015,
Okay.
2015, because before that I was collecting minions. I had hundreds of minions.
Like Despicable Me minions, or
Yeah, that's how I got it. That's what started my Lego prison was the minions when the third movie when they went to prison, and that's got me interested. And then before that though, I was already doing the Star Wars spaceships. The So I was putting those. So that's how I learned how to put them together and lock them in. And I just did this one here.
hmm
These are all on clearance, so I picked them up, and this one will kind of give me a better idea on how to create my next. I'm going to call it North Block, the lockdown, and
wow.
then I bought the other one on clearance, and it's like well, what do you call that? Like a Winnebago, but this
Mhm.
one has where the side door like swings open so you can see it. So when I make my next prison bus, it's definitely going to swing open so it doesn't have to lay on the ground like this one does. So it's all about progression and stuff like that, and I'll probably make it bigger and longer so I can include the isolation cages in the front of the bus and stuff. So I mean, but I got to focus. So there's just all kinds of stuff that have been popping up lately. So but I need to finish my first series and then my second series and then worry about the third one.
So how long have you been building with Legos and sculpting with Legos?
Um, uh, Pertaining my artwork since probably 2018 is when I started thinking about the concept, and that was after I bought the little construct one of the minion cell, and then it was just like a door, and then a wall, and then a wall that falls out, and then a toilet and stuff, and it had like a pick and a shovel and stuff like that. And I thought it was cool, and I put it up on the shelf, and I was just sitting there doing my work, and then I looked up, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's a sorry ass cell," and so I started building him a new cell that to the way it should be, and then I'm like, "Well, it should be gray," and I'm like, "Man." So I started looking up how much that would cost, and it's expensive, and it's like, "Well, I don't got that right now." And I was sitting here looking at, and pretty much all my ships were gray and black. So I started just cannibalizing all the gray ships to make the cells, and then turning into a cell block, and then a yard, and then a tower. I mean, a whole entire prison, ecosystem kind of thing, community. And so by that time, the only thing I had left was the Endor base and then an AT-AT Walker, which I just can't bring myself to take apart. So they're in storage unit now.
It's really ironic that the cells are made out of, I'm assuming what, the Death Star and the Star Destroyers?
Mm-hmm.
That's Did you do that on
Yeah,
purpose or it just happened to
they're all
match?
no, they're all great. I mean, I never even thought about it until I was thinking about pretty much my Corcoran days. So I spent like 8 years at Corcoran and then another 2 years at the new Corcoran across the street, and they were all gray with blue doors and stuff like that. And so my prison is a combination of like my Corcoran and then San Quentin because they had the bars for the doors, where in the Corcoran they have solid doors with a single slit window so they can do count, when they come by. And you can't shoot anything out. Only gap in it is about probably about that big at the bottom of the door. And then when you're locked down, you would sling a rope out with a note on it to send it to wherever. I mean, you can get a note from the first tier all the way up to the fifth tier on the backside if you want to, as long as the cops ain't tripping and people are there to get it going to where it needs to go. And then they would do a response, and they would like pull it, and then you would pull it all the way back for your response. I mean, it's pretty elaborate. And then when
Wow.
you're and then when you're in the hole, you just slide it across the floor and try to get it to there. I mean, it's just an interesting environment when you really get into it because a lot of ingenuity happens.
Yeah. So really quick, what's a Corcoran or where is that?
Oh, Corcoran State Prison is in Corcoran, California, which is in between, I think, Fresno and Bakersfield. So I was used to hot weather. I mean, it was like The coolest days is probably about 96 in the summer, and then up to usually about 106, and then sometimes it hit about 112. But in the institution, once it hit 110, they call everybody in, shut down the yard, shut off all the power in the building, and bring in swamp coolers, and they'll open up your doors so you can get some ventilation, and you can go to the shower to take a shower and back, and that's all you can do. And I'd go down there and take a cold ass shower, so
Yeah.
it'd be hot.
I
And
bet.
those walls, since they're cement and gray, they really hold the heat. So you really want to stay off the walls and stuff like that. So, anyways, that's where the gray comes from. And I just, just the ships just happen to be that color.
What's it like thinking back to those days and then modeling entire structures after like those carceral buildings or prisons?
Oh, well, um, therapeutic. Um, I mean, I didn't know it at the time. I didn't think, first of all, I didn't think I'm just going to build a prison out of Legos and, this is what I want to represent and all this stuff. I didn't really, it just happened organically. And I was just sitting there after I made the Minion prison. I'll have to send you that. The original Minion prison was only one tier, and with the yard and the tower, and that was it. And I put it in the fair, and I won the honorable mention, and I felt satisfied. But I couldn't like destroy it after I put that much work into it, and I just put it up. But then I just moved it around my room and stuff as I was doing stuff. I'm like, man, I really need to do something. And then I just stared at it, and I just started hearing the sounds of the doors closing and the yard people, and then the towers and the keys. I'm like, wow, it was really. I said maybe I could make this a. I mean, literally, I thought I was just going to make a social justice piece, but I was like, not knowing that anybody would actually see it. I mean, it would be my hopes, but you never know. And so I just started building what I heard. And next thing you know, I had three tiers with, I think, six cells on each tier, and then trying to make a diorama out of each cell from a memory that I have. And, I can fill up many, many prisons, but I'm just trying to isolate the ones that I want it right now. And, and just, it just came together after that. And then after it was done, that's where I felt um, some therapeutic properties, as in releasing, I guess, the animosity and maybe the resentment and the sadness and the isolation. I mean, I have already, but apparently there was still some residue, and there still might be more. I don't know, but once I got done, I just looked at it and just like, wow, just a lot. It was very intense
Yeah.
um, for some of those memories. But then I put it into that little uh, Lego sculpture, and I guess it kind of like in my mind kind of took some of that energy and trapped it in there for it to move on to the people who are going to see it and look at it and hopefully ponder our carceral system and like what does it actually do, and that's the goal, and at the time I didn't know, but now that I fully understand what it represents and how it can affect the narrative of the mass incarceration, that I want to be that voice, um, because I believe I was chosen, by the peace, by the spirits, or however you want to talk about it. And I'm like, well, I got to stop denying it, and just step into that role. And side note is, um, I was always afraid of my ego, I guess, or cautious of my ego. So I've been really suppressing it. And because I associate it with one of the main factors to get me into prison with a life sentence, because of my ego. But I believe now that I have grown and really done a lot of introspection and seeing other people how they handle success and how they handle, the public and all that stuff, that you can have a healthy ego, that I can have a healthy ego, and I accept that now and not so much see it as a foe, but more of a ally.
Mm.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
Makes perfect sense. And I remember you saying that you thought that no one would see your work or the structures that you build. So then, what not what purpose, but you were just doing it because it felt right, or
Yeah, in the beginning, when I uh, would you like to see the prison when I talk about it?
I would. That'd be
All
great.
right, hold on. And then there's my assistant going to work right there.
Or I said hi.
She
Hi.
says, "All right, here we go." Yeah, the
You get to see our messy house.
It looks artful.
It is.
oh yeah. So uh, the question was, how did I get started on it, or how did it come? No, what was it? I'm sorry.
You didn't think anyone would see it, so
Oh,
why were you
well, in the
what
very beginning, like I said, I was looking at it and just started hearing the noises. And one of the first things I put in there was this gun tower. And I put a female gun tower in there with the ponytail because it was off of one of the officers that used to work in the mornings in Corcoran in 2 building. And I used to be the yard groundskeeper, like for the yard. So I had to get up like at 6. And I get up, she'd be coming on to work. And one day I was brushing my teeth and I happened to look out that little slit window I was talking about. And she undid her hair. It was all the way down, like almost to her knees. And she would sit there and she would brush her hair every morning. Not a crazy thing, but it was just um, I haven't seen a woman brush her hair in, at that time, probably like 6, 7 years. So it was just cool to see in my book, I would consider it femininity, and so, and she was really cool, to talk to people and stuff like that, where a lot of them weren't. And so that's was one of the memories that I had, was of this officer. So that's how this piece came about. And then I was like, okay, from there, she got to be guarding something. So that's where all these cells came from. I don't know. Am I too close? Can you see them?
Yeah, I can see them.
Okay. And so each piece here there was a tattoo kind of parlor, and then there was the bar right there. And then people just reading newspapers, and here's the artist, and they're doing his painting, kind of
Wow.
like that. And then just people doing, everyday stuff, going to the bathroom, reading mail. These guys are drinking Pruno. One guy couldn't handle it. And this guy got stabbed up because he's a rat. So that he's an informant. So he would tell on other people to get favors from the cops and stuff like that. And then here's a cell search because somebody dropped a kite on him. And there's the knife and the cell phone hidden behind the toilet there. And then here's the guy who just got onto the yards. That's why he's in orange, because he's still orientation and stuff like that. And since the yard's open, there's some empty cells because they're out on the yard. And
Wow.
then, yeah, and then came over here, and then here's R&R when you first get there, and there's a bus, which is, with the marking time now, but it goes right here and opens up, and there's another officer as another person experiencing incarceration is getting out, getting ready to go into the processing. And then right here is where they unhook you and just throw your shackles in a little bucket right there. And then once you're inside, it's a whole different building, but I condensed it here to do your fingerprints, give you an ID, take your picture, take your clothes, give you clothes and stuff like that. And then here's the CERT team. And that is from, I believe, 2000, 2002, and a huge riot between the North and the South happened. And it lasted for about, I mean, literally probably about 35 minutes. It was crazy. And these guys were lined up very military, and they opened up the gate, and they marched in like, they were military, and they did all the hoot, hut, oh, all this stuff. And they just started firing tear gas into the yard. I mean, just started unloading all over the yard and not really realizing that the wind was on coming on them, and so they got hit with all the tear gas. So we were all laughing, so it didn't make anything better. Yeah. So and so that's why that was embraced on my in my mind,
Mm.
because it was very the traumatic part for me was I was bigger then and I was on the yard. I wasn't part of it, but I was on the yard. And so, but they have to hog tie everybody, regardless if you're part of it or not. And this guy jumped on my, literally put his knee in the middle of my back, grabbed my hands, and then put my hands in the little zip tie. And he's like pulling it, and like, it wouldn't go to the middle of my back. I said, "Hey, I'm not built that way, buddy." And he's like, "Everybody's built that way." And he jammed his knee even farther on my back, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he ripped those things where it just put my hands like together, back to back, wrist to wrist. And I laid there on the ground for about another 2.5 hours. So by the time I got back to the building and they cut them off, I had indentation of that um, zip tie into my skin, and it bruised. I was black and blue on my wrist for I think 28 days after that. And they knew, we had nothing to do with it, but that's their protocol. And that guy, I guess he didn't like me calling him buddy or something, so it was all bad. So anyway, so that's how it got imprinted in my head, and that's how they got put into this. And then over here, it's just everyday stuff on the yard, playing cards and listening to the radio and dominoes and doing the weight pile. People getting, uppity, so they get thrown in the hole there for a little bit. And then their toilets are right on the yard, just like this. There's no privacy whatsoever. And so all of that got put in there. And looking at it, now is, a piece of that energy, like I was saying before, I put into this and kind of like trapped it in there. And I see it that way, because I'm Native American, and so I see things like that where the spirit will take it, trap it, and then take it to a fire so it can be cleansed and then put somewhere where it can be beneficial to someone. And so I kind of see that into my pieces. And this piece here was the first one I did. And then from that, I went to the gun towers. And then from the gun towers, I went to the transportation bus. And then from the transportation bus, I went to the visiting room. And now I want to make a perimeter fence. I can go back in there now and show you that. Yeah, I'll stay focused here. So here's one of the gun towers. And then here's the fence that I want to do for the whole entire perimeter of the prison compound once it's all done. So
And then there's the visiting room I saw.
yes. And that comes from my dad. When I was in Corcoran, he'd come down at least, I say once a year. I think for the 8 years I was there, and then he'd visit almost every weekend when I was in San Quentin. So I spent a lot of time in the visiting room and noticing, not at the time, but this is always looking back on stuff, that the dynamics in the visiting room was totally different from once you leave that door. And it's kind of, again, I relate to like ceremonies. Is you leave all your baggage outside and you come in and you have a good time and you talk to people maybe you wouldn't talk to normally, and and just accept it for what it is. And then once you leave that ceremony, you can pick up all your baggage if you want. And so that was same kind of like a visiting room, like two people that hate each other would just go in and say hi to each other when their family's around, because they don't want to cause any concern or anything like that. And so it was just a weird kind of dynamic thing in there, which was phenomenal if you ask me. And so it was kind of like just an unwritten agreement between everybody that it's a neutral area, that people just go out to be with their families and that's it, and then come back to the yard, and then you can do whatever you want from there. But usually it was a really positive experience. I mean, there was shady stuff going on which I did not include into this visiting room, but if I make another one I might put the dark side of it. And that's just like people smuggling in drugs, and people paying off guards, and some places where you can have sex with your whoever it is behind the vending machines, you would pay the porter, ahead of time to reserve your spot. And it would open up and push back. I mean, it was just all kinds of crazy stuff. But I mean, there's just a lot. I can't put all of it into one piece, you know.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think the way that you capture these memories with Lego figures is incredible because I also grew up playing with Legos and like I use them a lot differently because I haven't played with them since I was a child, but like seeing how you're using them here is really cool because it's like a nostalgic element that a lot of people are able to relate to.
Yeah, I think my connection, because I'm 48 now. So when I got out, I was 39. So by the time I started playing with Legos and Transformers again, I think I was 41. And it wasn't like I'm gonna go buy this toy. It was gifted to me, and then I like the Star Wars stuff and putting stuff together. And then I was just thinking about my childhood growing up on the res, and with drug addicts and alcoholic, talking about my family and stuff, and taking care of my brother, taking care of my cousins, and all this stuff. And then when I was a teenager, joined a gang, and then ended up in prison. That I didn't really, even though I did have Transformers in, and I did play a lot. I can remember playing a lot, but I don't know if I really consider I had a childhood. And so, and plus I was poor and all this stuff, so I didn't get everything that I desired, which is fine. That's everybody. But now, I kind of, I don't know how to categorize it, but I just enjoy them. I enjoy just looking at them and seeing the collection and all that stuff and knowing the character from the movie. Anyways, and so I put it into that, and then I put it into the Legos as well. And then after looking back on it, it was like it is a great material or medium to use because, like you said, children are drawn to it, and children want to know, like, what is it? They don't have to ask their parents. And and it opens that dialogue about how do they kind of approach this topic about incarceration, mass incarceration, and prison, because a lot of children are affected by our carceral system because of their uncles, aunties, dads, mothers, whoever it may be, are inside of these places. And how do their family deal with it? Do they say, hey, he's locked up because he committed a crime, and then describe what a crime is? Or do they, like I see on movies and stuff, and know people that say they're off at college, or they're off at military, they're off somewhere but not in prison, to explain their disappearance? And so it just I hope in that it opens up a healthy dialogue about this carceral system, because we need to change it. And those little people, the young ones and the teenagers and the young adults, they're the one who's going to shape our future. And so that's why we need to let them know about how dysfunctional and what a failure our carceral system is now, to produce or at least nurture a productive citizen or human being. So um, that's why we need to start, and so that's why I really enjoyed the Legos too. And plus, again, like you're saying, us older adults, we can relate to it as well. And I could not believe how well received it was at the opening this past weekend. So I mean, just for me, I know it was cool, but I didn't know how other people would kind of see it, because I showed it to a couple people. They kind of laughed at it, and it was an ego blow, but I was just like, man, that's just what wanted to be made. So I enjoy it. So that's what matters. And if other people enjoy it, that's great too.
That's what counts. Thank you.
Yeah.
How did you first get introduced to the Marking Time family and Marking Time team community?
The community was at Cincinnati. I heard about it before because I know Gary Harrell, and I knew Ronnie Goodman, and I believe it was Lori who loaned Ronnie Goodman painting of the Arts and Corrections to Marking Time. So I heard about it through there. And then I believe Nicole was she at our conference in Santa Clara? I think so, somewhere around there. So anyways, but on this last one, I guess they invited Lori, and then Lori, just like, hey, I'm going to the Mark and Time. Would you be interested? I'm like, yeah, sure. And originally, William James was going to pay, but then she wrote a letter to Nicole or somebody there saying, hey, I have this guy who works for me, a returned citizen, and all this stuff. And, I think he would be beneficial to, do what you're doing over there. And like 2 days later, I got an invitation saying we'd like to, put you on a panel and all this stuff, and take me out there. And I said, all right, well, that's cool. And the only thing that made me hesitant was the flying part. I'm not a big flyer, but um, now now I feel pretty comfortable with flying. So how much I have done in the last couple of months. But so anyway, so I got there and I got on the panel, and I spoke on my experience, on some of my experiences, and just felt like, what, I think I need to do some self promotion. And I happened to be sitting next to Nicole the next day at like brunch or something, and we were talking, just talking about the event and all that stuff, and I just felt something just in me, and I listened. Something said, speak now, and I said, I'd like to just interrupt real quick, not to defer from our conversation, but I just want to promote myself really quick, just really quick. She said, yeah, go ahead, Henry. And I said, did you see the um, my PowerPoint presentation? She's like, yeah. And I said, I had some prison out of Lagos. She, oh yeah, that was great. I said, it needs a place to be seen. It needs a home. And she said, all right, well, I'll look into it. And because she said she felt that it needs to be seen. It needs to be out there. And so, all right, cool. And but I don't know what people will actually go through with and all that stuff. And then about a week later, I get the email saying, hey, we're looking into trying to get a spot in Brown. And I said, oh, cool, but nothing's guaranteed. I'm like, I'm not worried about it. At least it's in conversation. And then you guys asked me about, is it glued? How's it going to be transported? And that's when I was like, oh, never thought about that part. Because like I said, I never thought it would, really go anywhere except for maybe local if it did. And then there we are. And that's how I got introduced and then involved and then, you know, included, I guess, into the marking time movement.
Wow. And how's it been since you've been included in the movement?
Oh
You,
my God. I cannot believe the support, the encouragement, and it just it really touches my heart. It touches my heart because for 20 years, well, for a lot of those years, I just wanted to be invisible and just do my time and die. And so my voice wasn't heard and I wasn't seen and all that stuff. And I just did my artwork just because I love doing art. I mean, that's just who I am. That's what I'm a part of. I'm part of the art. And when I, give a piece away, sell a piece, I'm selling a piece of me. That's part of my energy that goes into it. And that's part of my medicine that goes into it. And just to be acknowledged and having the peace, not so much me, but having the peace celebrated and pondered blows my mind. And just, I am truly humbled and honored, to have this opportunity, you know. So, I mean, it's changed my life. I mean, it's given me a higher quality of life and then also let me grow in the process of people appreciating what I'm putting out there on this level. I'm pretty known in the Indian country art world, but I'm just now stepping into the social justice, which this piece, prison, brought me into, and like what needs to be put out there. What is it that is, hush? What is it that is not seen on the outside that is going on in there? And so that's why I started the series with the no warning shots with a bullet going through a person experiencing incarceration, just because that's how it was. And then I have another piece I just started where there's three guards beating up a person experiencing incarceration because he didn't get down quick enough, even though the fight was across the day room. I mean, it's just some wild stuff that happens in there. And the more we don't speak about it, the more it happens. And so I want to, um, expose those things that maybe people don't know about, or they might know about it but don't care about it. And so I want them to care about it. I want them to understand what's going on. There's one thing about, incarceration and doing your time and all that stuff, but people want to change and people do change. And I want people to know that people are redeemable no matter what walk of life we're in. If it's an incarceration, is it, the women, suffrage, is it the homelessness, is it, all this stuff that people need to see beyond the label and just see the human being. That what we need is just support, acceptance, community, and we're not trying to live off you, but just encouragement, and not have that stigma or being looked down on or being pitied and all that stuff. Just, help me be the best person I can be, and I will do the same for you.
Hmm. Thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's really I. It's, you're touching my soul. It's the best way I could put it right now. It's really um, encouraging and very well put and beautiful. So
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, thank you. And we are honestly, we're more than honored to have you as part of the community and happy to have your knowledge and your voice and that you were able to share your story at the symposium and even like during this little conversation, not little, but during this conversation here.
Mhm.
Um, it's important, and I think it really speaks to the way that not only are people redeemable, but like we're all capable of connecting with one another and
Yes.
sharing stories and creating new stories. So
Yeah. Another thing I like about uh, helping and, and before I would say I'm giving the people behind the wall or the people on reservations a voice. And that was a little egotistical and conceited because they have voices. All I want to do is amplify that voice so it's heard beyond the wall and heard beyond the reservation on what's going on there and how people can change it if they know about it and care about it. And so, um, it's just, I guess it gave me meaning as well, our direction, um, to just really humanize people, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I guess that piece really chose me, you know, and Creator knows, you know, um, what I've been fighting, and just because I didn't want it to go crazy is just, where we're at now, just being seen and being heard and being appreciated and being able to accept that, I have this skill set and I have this knowledge and I have um, the lived experience and I'm capable of um, talking about it and relating it to people who haven't been inside of an incarceration system, by just really connecting with the feelings and uh, some of the needs that were not met while I was in there, and trying to give a person that has nothing, no idea of what the carceral system really involves, and just trying to make it where they can think about when they were felt isolated or when they felt lonely or when they felt frustrated or oppressed, where they just felt they couldn't do nothing to improve their situation and all these things. But then, hope, the hope just needs that one little pinhole to shine through and just, corrode it to where it just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until you're in a spotlight. And then when you're in the spotlight, what are you going to do in that spotlight? Are you going to hog it? Or are you going to step out of the way and let other people in that spotlight? And I think that's where we come in, because we have the vision and we can do our part, but we need to involve more people and we need to get them in the spotlight, and not so much, famous and all the stuff, but I'm saying to get their voice out there and share their story and connect with the people that maybe I could not because, for whatever reason, because of different people and different experiences, to really broaden uh, our spectrum for change.
That makes sense. Definitely does make sense. And that also, that really ties back into what you were saying earlier about ego and like having maybe a healthy relationship with your ego, not
Hmm.
necessarily being ashamed of it or like making excessive pride out of it, but just
Yeah,
allowing it to carry you in the way that you need to be carried or the way that it needs to be seen or shown or whatever is done with it. So, thank you.
I can share this. I like verbally said, I am no longer afraid of you, talking to my ego, and I'm ready uh, to embrace you and become collaborated with you and to move us forward in a positive manner. And when I was asked to do the land acknowledgement and the prayer song at this in Brown, it was the first time that I did not have a panic attack before speaking. Because like how long I sat up there waiting for us to start, oh, I would have been dying. I would have been on the floor and all the stuff holding my chest because it'd make like a fake heart attack and pressure and all this stuff. And this was the first time where I felt, I guess, comfortable and safe and not just in the environment, but within myself to speak on these matters.
I'm taking a breath because honestly, a lot of what you've said during this meeting really resonates with me as an
Mhm.
individual, like what you said about ego and what you said about community and just accepting what you're capable of and allowing that to be perceived through your work as an artist and an activist and so on and so forth. So I'm really resonating. So if you see me like
Oh,
looking off
great.
this direction, I'm looking at my guitar off screen, or I'm like looking at my camera here because you're really
Hmm.
inspiring me right now.
Well,
So
thank you.
you're welcome.
Well, you inspire me, the whole team. I mean, uh, I am grateful and appreciated to be a part of
Hmm.
the team. So, and you guys are great role models. And uh, when I was writing a grant, um, and I was thinking about everything kind of. So this helped me really put perspective on like what I want to do and what am I focusing on and who are the people I want to serve and all that stuff. But what it came to, too was oh shoot, I hope I didn't lose this. Oh, what did I put in there? Oh, and I was thinking about Nicole and what she does. I'm like, and so I put it in mind, like, you know what? When I get done with the work that I want to complete, start and complete, and then I got to go and have an exhibit, and I have three spots to exhibit at, prospectively. But the third venue is a clubhouse here that I can rent, and it's pretty big, and I could set up everything and do catering. But I was thinking, you know what? I'm going to have a panel of four formerly incarcerated arts and correction alumni. I'm going to ask them to create a new piece of art to include into the exhibit, which is theirs to keep. And they can, if I go to another spot, they can choose to take it with me, but have them speak about, like you're asking me, how did art affect my life, while incarcerated? Or how did it enhance it? What did it do, for me as an individual, as a community member of the incarceration period and outside of here. And then also, pay them for what, for their expertise, because that's what we're trying to do is educate the public. And the venue that I'm at, that I want now is pretty much, you know, um, middle class or higher class Anglo Saxons in this area. And so, I would like to, expose them to these things since they don't have to travel anywhere. It'd be right there in their neighborhood to come on by and stop in, and so I just want to pay it forward to again sharing that spotlight, bringing those people in, and then hopefully, re-sparking their connection with their artistic expression, or or at least just to be out there and just sharing their life and hopefully changing things, so I put that in there, like, oh, I think I would like to do that, and then how can I do it on a bigger scale? And then just got, okay, calm down, one step at a time. Let's see if I get this, and then make this happen, and so you guys are really inspiring, so thank you.
Of course. Of course. Okay. I'm going to thank you for your words, and I'm going to end this recording.